Catus Maximus here, this time with an American-made set of KD 2162 sheet metal wire strippers and crimpers and common-sized bolt cutters. People are wondering, these are common sizes that are used in electrical products, electrical panels, and so that's why they include them. There's quite a few points. I actually like these KDs, and they can be found online for as cheap as like 10 bucks, 10, 15 bucks, so they're definitely still around. And actually, as far as these kind of stripper and crimpers, these are actually really competitive. They're one of my nicest sets. I do, this style of crimper tends to be what's the most common, just the simple, more basic ones. But there's something to be said with having a bit heavier duty set. We can certainly see this much thicker steel than the Doyles. Those Doyles, if you really want a super nice set of wire strippers, you can't really beat the forged steel ones, whether it's Doyle or Milwaukee. These are really nice, but they don't have crimpers or bolt. They have a couple sizes of bolt cutters, but certainly not 6. I think a better comparison would be maybe these Ideal USA 45 777s, which I paid like 30 bucks for. These are actually pretty expensive, and these KD ones are actually better in 5 different ways at least. Anyway, as far as how these strippers work, we do have 6 stripping sizes, pliers, 6 bolt cutters, and a variety of both non-insulated as well as insulated, and then some heavier gauge automotive crimpers. Although these are kind of hilarious because they're pretty far out in the handle. You have to put these in a vise to crimp one of these heavy duty crimpers. Anyway, as far as how these work, they're usually pretty basic. Actually, I think that's a 10 gauge wire, to tell you the truth. You just do a snip on the wire, you turn it, do another snip again, and then you use these plier tips to pull it off. And unfortunately, I have misjudged the size there. Apparently that is 12 gauge wire. So I'll do that again. Some people like grabbing with the next size up, and it kind of depends on how it works. A lot of insulation sometimes does not want to come off with the pliers, and sometimes it does. And so that's generally what the plier tips are, as well as just grabbing onto and generally manipulating wire when you need to. These do have cutters, and they do still work pretty well, even though they do have a little nick in this used pair. Comparing to these Ideals, though, in the multiple different ways, they're better than the Ideals, and the Ideals are supposed to be, really a premium brand. The steel is thicker, 128 thousandths here and like 138 thousandths here, so thicker steel. This has a weird coax, where this one it makes more sense because this has both insulated and non-insulated crimpers, where this only has quote-unquote insulated crimpers. And then once again, they have a round auto versus this little double notch. It makes these seem to make it seems to make a little more sense with these, is what I'm trying to say. 6 bolt sizes versus the 5 on the Ideals. The Ideals also only have 5 different stripping sizes, where there's 6 on these KDs. And then we can see the plier tips are just more aggressive teeth, a little bit longer, and a little bit more versatile, a little bit sharper versus this really blunt tip. So I thought that was kind of surprising, as these Ideals were really my premium ones, until I actually randomly ran into these used at a junk store. And it turns out they're actually really good, and seeing that they're still easily available online. If you just want a more traditional kind of wire stripper combination unit like these are the ones I'd recommend getting, not the Vacos or the Ideals or so many of the other kind of sheet metal brands. These really are pretty nice and pretty thick, pretty heavy duty. One thing I will give to the Ideals is the way they have these handles and they have this gap. Makes these over grips a bit softer than this KD style, which has a flare but no extra cushion right on the gripping surface. But besides that, these are pretty solid units. I think anybody who would end up with a kind of a general just household pair of wire strippers and crimpers, these would be a pretty good bet. These would probably last you as long as you wanted to. I'm actually pretty surprised. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.